Right. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Tuned and Strong podcast. This is Angela McHouston of Music Strong.
And I am joined by my lovely co-host, Jen Capitanay from Tone and Tone Performance.
hmm and we are going to kind of wrap up our little mini series here this week about we were using the Things Musicians Don't Talk About podcast as our launching point there, Injury Awareness Week. So 2 times ago, we discussed that concept of getting behind the fear and the weight of that. Last time we talked about issues involving blame, shame, and ignoring pain, which is awesome that it rhymed. But the third thing, when we were discussing this, you were telling me that you noticed was that one of the common themes in these individual stories of how they were getting past their injury and getting to the other side of it, really starting to get back to normal or beyond that, if we will, is that they all found that they needed strength.
Yeah, that was a common theme that I was hearing with the entire Musicians Injury Week, Awareness Week.
hmm
It wasn't everybody, but it was
Right.
a very common thread that as they're going through this, one of the things they eventually turned to, whether it was physio or strength training or personal training or any version of that, strength came into it as what basically was, I don't want to say it's the thing that healed them, but it was like the missing piece. And it's the missing piece we don't talk about, or music schools are afraid to talk about, or, it's just the big elephant in the room.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's something that we've touched on, I know, in our podcast several times here, probably more than several times, considering that we both do strength. But there's this like, oh, but that's not what we do. We're artists, we're creatives, we don't do that. And I know a lot of it for a lot of people too comes from that kind of PE, phys ed, sports scars, if you will.
Can I tell you how much I hated PE?
Right.
Which doesn't make sense with what I do, but PE I hated.
Same. I mean, the evaluation tools that were used caused me to believe that I did not have physical ability, which is just so not true. But that's that, what are you being evaluated on versus what are you being taught, all that stuff. But a lot of people in the arts tend to have that, oh yeah, well, I did this for a little while, but then this happened, and or won't name names, but I had one person tell me that they were made fun of for showing up. I don't remember if it was basketball or football tryouts. They were in like late elementary, maybe early middle school, and they showed up in jeans because they didn't know any better. And either the coach or the TA or somebody made fun of them.
Like, come on.
Yeah.
If you don't know any better, you don't know.
Right. And you think about how old that person must have been. I'm like 10, 11, 13 at the oldest. Like, that's early on to get that kind of shame ingrained into your system and associate it with physical activity.
Yeah. I remember, do you remember this? The presidential, what was it? The presidential physical fitness test.
Exam.
And I always thought it was like silly. I'm like, does the president do this? I don't know, but I can't do pull-ups and I suck at running. I sucked at running as a kid. I've never been able to do a pull-up in my life. Does that mean I can't be strong? No. Does that mean I can't be physically fit? No. But that was just that thing. And I get where they're coming from, where they're trying to give us kind of a standard and kind of a goal and something that we can rally around and encourage each other and, something.
Right.
But it's not, and I get this with the Army physical fitness test too. They don't, the new one anyway, the ACFT, the Army combat fitness test, which is the one that has replaced the Army physical fitness test, the APFT.
Yeah.
Don't get me started on how dumb I think this is. I think they're both dumb. I think the last one was antiquated. beyond irritated, but this new one is just stupid. Reason being, most of us are not going to have to do all this stuff. But the main thing is they don't. All they do is they make it. You have the exact same standards, everybody across the board. They don't care if you're a 50-year-old woman or an 18-year-old male. Excuse me, what? What? Just think about that. How many 50-year-old females and 18-year-old males do you know that are physically similar? I know zero, absolutely zero. I know negative people that are falling in that category, right? So when you think about that, and I put that back to the presidential thing when I was in second grade? We did this first grade. They're just trying to get you to move, and I applaud that. But it's like, no, you've got these things that they separate you, and there's nothing wrong with that. But you have to make what's the word? You have to make concession for sex, for age, for also for jobs. So all they've done in the new ACFT is say, okay, if you have a less demanding physical job, you get to do less. Period. That's it.
That doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I mean, I guess it does, but it's just yeah. I mean, going back, sorry, I'm going back just a little bit to kind of jump off of that, but I'm not sure it quite lines up. So, on a similar front, it's that you mentioned the president's physical fitness exam. I remember that too. I remember that's what it was called, and so of course that makes you think it's like super ultra important.
Mm.
Okay, so you're tested on this, and you're tested on it once a year, but the curriculum is nothing but ball sports. The PE
Wasn't it also
curriculum.
pull-ups and push-ups and stuff?
Oh yeah, the
Mm.
exam, pull-ups, chin-ups, push-ups, sit and reach. I don't remember what else, but the PE curriculum
Mm.
is nothing but ball sports.
Mm-hmm.
So the instructors have to teach you ball sports, and they can't deviate from the curriculum. But then you're tested on stuff that has nothing to do with what you're taught. I mean, it's insane. If we were to come at that from like a musical perspective, like, okay, well, you're going to do nothing but study Baroque oboe, but we're going to test you on jazz bass. It's both music though,
Yeah.
so you should pass. You're never going to touch a bass until the day of your exam, and we're going to test you on jazz. It's that disparate, really,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
you know? But it leaves us with all of these like really early onset, I guess I'm going to call them sports scars. I don't know what else to call them.
Mm-hmm.
But we end up with this like aversion as a group to we associate, oh well, if you're lifting weights, then you're athletic. And so we're averse to anything to do with athletics because of
Yeah.
our history. So we don't want to touch weights.
Yeah, but I think back to college, and there were several of us who were really like gym rats, I want to say,
Mhm.
but we were
Yeah.
the outliers.
Yes.
I'm not going to say we knew what we were doing, but we just loved being there. But we were by and large not the norm.
Right. It's absolutely, you will find people who are like, oh yeah, well I do this and powerlifting or something, basic powerlifting
Sure.
program. They may not even know that's what it's called.
Mhm.
Dozens of runners because, and I quote, running is healthy. Whether or not it is, we'll leave that alone. Dozens of runners, you'll find people who are into ab workouts or dance type stuff, and I am not opposed to any of this, mind you.
Mhm.
But it's pockets,
Mhm.
and it's almost never related to what you do at the instrument.
Mhm.
It's very rarely cross applied that way. Um, yeah. So
Which is why we do what we do, because honestly, it's like that. It's that missing link, really. I mean, we've talked about it before. You can stretch all you want, but honestly, at the end of the day, if you don't know if you stretch something just because it hurts, doesn't mean you're helping it. A lot of times things that hurt are weak. That's why they hurt, because whatever's pulling them is what's tight. Whatever's tight doesn't usually hurt. So if you stretch something that's weak, guess what? You're making it weaker. You're going to exacerbate the problem.
Right.
But we are told, I remember in undergrad, I was told, stay out of the gym, you'll hurt your fingers. And I was like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. I can hurt my fingers doing anything. That's just a straight up ignorant statement.
It is.
And so I laughed and said, no. And I kept going back to the gym because I was like, no, it has to do with what you know. Now, granted, did I know everything? No. Did I know all of what I was doing? No. But did I know that picking up heavy things and making my body stronger made me feel better overall and gave me more energy and a more positive mindset and all those other things that come with it? Yes. So where I came at it from the beginning was, my professors are telling me these things from a place of well-meaning, but ignorance. Right. I'm on the other side of this. They're not here. They're doing cardio. I'm doing strength training. The two are not the same at all.
They're not. They are 0% the same.
0% the same. Nope.
Yeah. But you were very fortunate that you had already gotten yourself in there in some way, shape, or form. Versus, I mean, I know that I'm going to say I was taught that I was not physically capable from an early age. I definitely have some of those, PE scars, definitely there. But I was taught that I was not physically capable at an early age. And then I started hurting from the instrument. And so you're going to these people that you trust. They're your mentors, they're your doctors, whatever. And everybody's just saying, don't pick anything up, don't pick anything up, don't pick anything up, don't carry anything. Don't go to the gym, avoid anything strenuous. If you don't, I mean, really part of what took me so long is that I tried everything else, and it just wasn't working. And you get to a point where you're going, okay, you people think this is acceptable for me to just be doing pain management. It's not acceptable. Pain management is not acceptable.
It's management. It doesn't fix the problem.
The only practitioner I spoke to who was like, yeah, no, you've got to have a serious, like, degenerative issue before I would say you actually need permanent pain management. He's very honest, love him to pieces, was the chiropractor who finally diagnosed me in the first place. He's like, you should not need pain management. It's going to be a lot of work, but you should not need pain management. Okay. The more I learn, the more I know, because you know your own body, right? Like, this is not right. I'm playing and something is still not right. I know what I'm capable of and I'm not there. It took so long to go, okay, well, these people are clearly wrong. They misdiagnosed me for how many years? What they're giving me, I only get so much better. Something else is going on that's not right. Lo and behold, it was the thing that I was being told to avoid.
Strength.
And the more we dig into this, the more you and I, both experientially firsthand, but also working with other people, maybe it's not what the injury is, right? So yes, I have cervical ribs. I have extra rib in my neck, pushes on things, cause the issue. That rib is what was causing the circulation cut off, the blood flow cut off, whatever. But I was so weak, I had to hunch. It wasn't just a shyness thing. I did not have the muscular strength. Like, you'd tell me, if you're watching on the recording, you can see this. You tell me, okay, shoulders back, and I'd maybe get that far, right? I could not, without trying to, pull, I could not get further than that. Physically, couldn't do it. And I see this too with the people that I work with. You tell them to try to, like, okay, bring your shoulders, just relax. And I've seen this with other trainers working with other people too. Like, oh, you got to pull. No. You don't have the muscular mobility to do it. That's something we can work on. that is not your fault, and it's not through lack of effort.
Mm-hmm. Please don't blame yourself for this.
No, no. But that aversion to strength is not helping anybody. And even if it's not the cause, like I was, sorry, going back,
Mm-hmm.
my cervical rib was the cause of my injury. But, sorry, quote the diagnosis cause, whatever. Even if
Yeah.
it's not the manifestation, the root cause, I would say, is a lack of strength in me. That was my root cause, because if I had been strong enough to begin with, I wouldn't have gotten to that position, caused all those problems.
Mm-hmm. So if we want to go down that road,
Sure.
I don't have cervical ribs. Thank goodness. I'm sorry you have to deal with that. That's
Fine.
no fun.
I'm just glad I had a cutter who didn't want to cut me.
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding. So first injury I had was overuse. It was tendonitis.
Mhm.
Could that have been avoided through strength training? Absolutely. Here's the deal. When you load your body with more work than it is able to do in a short amount of time, something's going to break. It's like you're loading up a chain that is only able, like you, how do I say this? Like
weight limit's 50 pounds and you drop 100 on it. What do you think is going to happen?
It can only do 50 pounds. Right. So your body is going to break down at the weak point. Basically. Yeah. Could that have been avoided? Absolutely. Could Interlochen have said, hey, we don't know where you are right now in your playing regimen. We don't know how many hours a day you're playing, whatever. Can you employ some physical therapy stuff? Why don't you start doing this instead of just going from 2 hours a day to 8 hours a day for 8 weeks?
Yes.
No, they just expected it. Could they have mitigated it? Yes, they could. Did they? No. So overuse, but it could have been fixed through strength training.
Yeah.
Because guess what fixed it when I came out of that situation? Yes, I rested for a little bit. And I do mean a little bit. And when I mean a little bit, I mean I quit playing 8 hours a day to like 1 hour a day for a while. And then I did strengthening exercises for my forearm, for my wrist, for my shoulder, right? Yeah. Okay, the second one was in graduate school, and I had an overuse injury from playing too much. Again, left arm came in front of the body, the pectoralis minor, actually, both of them were too tight. The rhomboid on my left side was overstretched and weak from 15 years of having no love and no strength. And it finally, I did a bench press because I didn't know you're supposed to retract the shoulder blade, stabilize the spine, engage the rhomboid when you press, and it tore. Did I know? No, I didn't know. And doctor said, you should rest. And I was like, that's not an option. I can't quit playing. I'm in school for performance. He goes, well, here's some painkillers and massage. Okay, so we're going to massage a torn muscle. Yeah, it helped a little bit, but it more helped when he massaged the pec in the front, which was overly tight. Yes. And then I eventually learned how to strengthen the muscles in the back. Could it have been avoided? Time 2. Yes, it could have been avoided. Same thing the third time. It was a third injury. It's exactly the same thing. Could it have been the fourth time? It had to do more like with whiplash and stuff. It got a little more complicated there. But it all comes back to lack of strength and lack of consistent strength training. And it's not just about playing your instrument. It's also about your life. Right. What does your life look like? Have you had car accidents? Are you hypermobile? Have you had this? And if you're not doing anything to mitigate that, you add playing an instrument on top of it, you're asking for problems. It's going to happen. It's not if, it's when. Yeah. But you can fix that with strength.
Right. And if you're coming at it from a, previous generation kind of mindset, when I was a kid, 2 generations ago at this point, when I was a kid, we were expected this, that, and the other. Okay. What did your life outside look like?
Yeah.
You were walking places, you were carrying instruments, you weren't necessarily driving a car, you were carrying books, you were doing physical reading, you were taking breaks because, like it or not, the demand on students, and not just students, workers in general, all levels, has gotten higher. It has. Less in a physical labor, less in a physical way. and more in a sit on your butt and get into this hunched position, right? You're going to sit at your desk and you're going to type. And half
Mm,
people now are on laptops or tablets, which are smaller and smaller and smaller. And your eyes go to the thing that you're looking at. Your eyes lead your head in that direction. So you're coming down. If you're texting, you're going to go down. Everything is becoming this
mm.
micro focus.
Your bodies go where your eyes go.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So to have somebody from the generation before or two generations before tell you, oh, well, we used to play this much and it didn't do this to us. They had a different lifestyle.
Totally.
That's not a bad thing I would say it's a little bit of a bad thing for the current generation, but it does mean that if somebody is putting these expectations on you without giving you the physical preparation for it, that person is being unfair.
Yeah,
They just
100%.
are. Like, again, high schooler, go off to it was Tanglewood for me, not Interlochen, it was Tanglewood.
Mm.
And same deal where it was like, okay, well, I had, 2 hours band rehearsal per day and an hour of practice, whatever, at high school. And a couple days a week, I'd go over and do my youth orchestra. And not that
Yeah.
I wasn't playing a lot, but that's quite different than 6 hours a day of band, 2 hours a day of chamber, and you're expected to practice. That is a
Right.
different story and nothing else to do. Nothing else.
That was it.
I
That was
wasn't
it.
physically prepared for that. No,
Mm.
nobody knew how to prepare me for it. And we were very lucky that we had one of the gals that was the clarinetist who was with the woodwind quintet in residence. She had come off an injury too, which great thing emotionally for me because I was the only openly injured person at that camp.
Mm.
I know there were others looking back, but I was the only openly injured person in the clarinet section. There were a couple of open horn players, but and a few others. I don't remember. I think we had oboe, flute, doesn't matter. But thankfully, at least I had that like, okay, I'm not alone,
Mm.
which is what you're taught, at least used to be. And she was trying to give us, yoga poses, and that was, touted as a very good thing that we had her. But she was the only person there. She was not a certified yoga instructor. She was just giving us stuff that helped her. And I'm having forearm problems, and she's giving me all these forearm stretches. Were my forearms tight? Yes, they were also shredded and inflamed.
Right. It's not what you needed.
That's not what I needed. And that's not her fault that she didn't know that, but that was the position I was in. And especially
Mm-hmm.
when you're taught you can't carry anything, you can't lift anything. All you can do is stretch and take painkillers and get massage and maybe chiropractic.
Or
Or
rest and don't
or
play at
rest
all.
or go to I did not have the right physical therapist. I think my physical therapist was wonderful for athletes. Had no clue what they were doing with me. Because a lot of the forearm stuff made me worse, not better. And I just felt like it made me worse. And so
Wow.
I just stopped doing that portion of it. The rest of the stuff did help, but again, it hit that ceiling and came back down.
We had
But
really different physical therapists then because I don't know that my physical therapist, when I went to the bone and joint clinic when I came back, I was 17. I keep telling people I was 16. I was actually 17. This was 97-ish. I came back, went to the bone and joint clinic. And they said, hey, yeah, this is tendonitis is what this is. We're going to give you these things. You should rest. But rest to me really meant I wasn't playing 8 hours a day. I was going to be playing 1 hour a day. Honestly, that's legit. That's there's nothing wrong with that. That is technically rest. You are dropping the workload significantly. And then they said, we're going to give you these physical therapy exercises. And I went, cool. Let me go. And we did curls, all the different kinds of ways. And we did, twists and all the kinds of things.
yeah.
And I just did them religiously as they told me to do. And it was fine. It was good. So, I mean, I actually had somebody, I don't know that they understood me as a musician, but what they gave me was what I needed. And as soon as I felt better, I was like, I will avoid a needle in my arm at all points. So like, if this doesn't get better, we're going to give you a cortisone shot. I'm like, cool, I'll do the exercises. No problem. So I did them and they worked out just fine. Yeah. But you have to wonder, like, if we had such dissimilar situations, it just means that not all situations are the same. You could have the same diagnosis and completely different situations.
Absolutely. And I'm sure because it's a sports guy that I went to, but
Mm,
you get referred, and that was the only one that I knew. And I'd gone to a couple others with no results whatsoever. So this was at least a
sure.
step in the right direction.
Yeah.
But my pain was in my forearm. So everybody was focused on my forearm.
Hey, they didn't look up the chain, did they?
A couple people did.
Good.
Um, and again, that physical therapist was one of them. Everything else they gave me for up the chain was fine, but I would describe what I had in my forearm as a tearing sensation just consistently. Yeah, the colder it got, the more it felt like you were just tearing and tearing and tearing and tearing. And
Yeah,
I
that's
was playing like that
awful.
for years. But so it was all the back of the forearm. And so the idea was, well, the back of your forearm must not be strong enough to handle that. So let's give you the thing where you stick your arm. Because I mean, also my hands are very, very curly, right? Yeah, they don't want to open all the way. I can do it now. I know I've learned how to do it.
They
I'll
just
share
want
that
to
behind.
be
They
like
want to
this.
be very closed all the time.
Have you always been that way though?
It's gotten worse. It got
Really?
worse when
But
I
I mean,
started playing clarinet.
you've been that way since, you were little kind of thing. It wasn't like
Uh,
what was that a playing thing?
I don't know. I really never paid attention, but it was one of
Yeah.
those like as my hands started getting worse, and really it was Alexander technique when you just kind of plop your hands on your thighs and look at them. Mine
Yeah.
are not open. They're more open now than they used to be. But
Right.
what I was given was
So,
that, like take the bucket and fill it with rice or beans and open
and
your.
then,
Okay, but that was just overusing the thing that was overused.
mm,
That forearm was in pain because it was compensating for everything else. I had no
yeah,
lats, I had no pecs, I had no tear, like nothing in the chain. My core was garbage. So everything was relying on, again, that right forearm because that was also the one holding up the clarinet.
yeah.
It was not the right thing to do with it.
You
And
needed strength overall.
I did. And I also needed to understand what I was doing and not using that same, like, look, I can open my hand with that spot that hurts. I can also open it with a different set of extensors
Yeah.
using more of that chain and doing it the Alexander way. I can end up with a palm up, palm open kind of thing on my lap. It takes a
Mhm.
little bit of doing, but I can do it. The difference is understanding that I have the ability to use more than just that one spot that felt like it was tearing nonstop. But I wasn't going to get that with a task oriented assignment.
No.
Like, yeah, I can open my hand really hard. I can grip really hard. My forearms are great
Right. And
in
this is
terms of
something, what you're saying is it's like, this is what I heard with the things musicians don't talk about, and also with my clients, and probably with your clients,
Mhm.
is that we
Mhm.
see is when it comes to musicians, it's not just the overuse injuries that we
Yeah.
see of the forearm muscles or the
Right.
the muscles around the
Mhm.
elbow, the cubital tunnel and the tendonitis and
Mhm.
quote carpal tunnel syndrome, all that
Mhm.
stuff, right?
Mhm.
Most of the time, at least I can speak from my experience and
Mhm.
from what others have told me from their experience, a couple of ART practitioners that are here in Nashville that have treated drummers and stuff, like they've said, I've never seen a true case of carpal tunnel. No, their forearms are just so freaking tight that's it's causing swelling down here. They've got to
Mhm.
relax these muscles because they're
Right.
overused.
Yeah.
But it's also they're overusing them in a certain way. So it's not just
Mhm.
we're overusing these muscles, but as I was mentioning, when we think
Yeah.
about how we use our bodies,
Mhm.
you don't use your forearms and your fingers in isolation. Your body doesn't
Right.
just stop from the elbow
Yeah.
down,
Right. Which is
right?
exactly what I was doing when I was playing clarinet. I
Yeah.
only could feel from the elbow to the tips of my fingers to
Oh
play.
gosh.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
you think about that, just how much of my body from the elbow up down to my sit bones, like my
Yeah.
entire torso, could have been used to support the instrument. And I
Yeah.
wasn't. I was leaving it on the table.
Yeah, because you were focused here where you could feel it. And how many
Exactly.
musicians they just depend on the muscles they can feel.
Right.
Okay. Quick exercise, guys. I want you to
Mhm.
stop and I want you to notice where your feet are on the floor. I don't care if you're driving, you're sitting, or you're in a waiting room or whatever, you're walking along the grocery store. Do you feel both soles of your feet? If one is up, do you feel it? Do you feel the arches of your feet? Do you feel the middle toe?
Mm-hmm.
No? Do you feel the one next to it? Do you feel your pinky toe? Do you feel the inside of your big toe? Okay. Check this out. What about the spot behind your shoulder blade? Probably. What about the spot underneath your nose? What about the spot in like behind your earlobes? All of this, it sounds kind of funny, but if we're not aware of the rest of our body, we only focus on what is crying out to us.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as we have more body awareness, we start noticing, oh my gosh, okay, so I've got all this stuff going on in my forearm. My shoulder now does kind of feel funny. If you're still not feeling that, most of the time, I find things that happen in the wrist, forearm, and elbow stem from the shoulder and the neck. Mm-hmm. There's either an instability or a muscle compensation going on there that it just can't deal with it. And that usually comes from the chest, back, levators, upper traps, neck, that whole area, this whole upper shoulder girdle area plus neck. And if it's all jacked up, guess where it's going to travel if you play an instrument? It's going to travel down to your wrist and your forearm. Guess what hurts? Wrist and forearm. Guess where the problem is? Up by your face. But we don't think about it because we're not paying attention because it doesn't usually hurt.
And we're never taught.
We're
taught to stretch the thing that hurts. But going back to your injury number 2, right? You're talking about your pec was so tight.
So tight.
Your pec was short because it was tight. And your
if
back
I had stretched that,
your back was tearing. It was already compensating already longer. So what you needed to stretch was not the thing you felt. It was up front.
Bingo.
If anything. And I have some weird ideas about stretching that we'll leave out of this for now. But okay, real quick. Do not just
go for it. This
do not just stretch a short, weak muscle. Strengthen.
If it hurts, don't blindly stretch it. You don't know.
Right. But if you have found out, like say your pec is short, your pec is tight, you can stretch it. You also need to strengthen it because it's short, because it's weak. Do not necessarily do both at the same time because they do opposite things.
Right.
So, little PSA there.
No. This is really, really important. I think it's not something that's addressed much because we think short, tight, weak hurts. We don't understand how muscle can be tight and weak at the same time.
Yeah.
There's a disconnect there.
Yeah, it's short because it's weak. It's short because it's not strong enough to get to its full length. That's why if I'm teaching somebody to deadlift who's got really bad hamstrings, I am not going to have them come off the ground. They're not capable of doing that safely yet. They're going to compensate in their lower back. And that's if you've got a deadlift related injury and your back hurts, it's probably because your hamstrings aren't mobile enough to go that low.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. I can't tell you the number of people that, we're trying to do something with their arms. Their lower traps are gone, just so atrophied. They haven't used them forever. The serratus anterior doesn't work. For anybody who's listening who has no idea what those muscles are, it doesn't matter. The point is, if you lift your arm and you shrug your shoulder, guess what? That's not supposed to happen. So you should be able to lift your arm at a 45-degree angle without shrugging your shoulder. If you can't do that, that's what we're talking about. That means that's an injury waiting to happen because there's a compensation there that shouldn't be there. You've got weak muscles that are not working. You've got overactive muscles that are super overactive. And these are all things that can be mitigated through strength training. Yes. And it doesn't have to be. Now, granted, I do musician-specific strength training, as do you.
Right.
But it doesn't have to be that. Just like some good, solid core work and, grip strength. Like holding heavy things has value.
Yes. And having somebody who, if you don't know what you're doing, having somebody who does, I know we've said it again and again and again, but like, that is gold. That is worth every cent,
It is.
And even knowing what I'm doing now, mostly, I'll always say I'm constantly learning. I will never stop. Partly because it's fun, and partly because I just don't want to be that person who, God, the number of people who are like, well, the answer to that is this. I'm like, okay, but it didn't work for that person, so there's something else. Drives me nuts. Can't be that person.
Yeah.
So, but even knowing what I know now, like I will consult. I will consult with somebody else that I trust about, okay, this doesn't feel right. I've hit a wall. What do you see? What do you think? What are you noticing? What do you have that
Mhm.
I don't, tools wise?
Look,
Because like, man, trying to figure it out on your own when you can't see yourself.
Olympic athletes have coaches.
Yes, all of them.
What makes us different? As a musician, you have a teacher, you have a mentor, you have somebody that you would
Mhm.
trust to listen to your excerpts or whatever.
Yeah.
When we come to like myself as a trainer, let me tell you, I've had several trainers that have been okay and also some who've been terrible.
Yes.
Have I found one lately who has fit me? No. Am I on the hunt for one? Yes. Because yes, I can write my own training programs. And I've said this before, but I don't stick to my own training programs because I cannot be objective with myself. I don't need
Right.
someone to like watch me all the time, but I need someone who knows what I do and can look at
Right.
me with that objective eye and go, yeah, you need this. And I'm like, I don't like that. And they go, well, that's tough.
Well, too
We're going to
bad,
find an exercise you like to
Yeah.
fix this issue because otherwise it won't happen.
Yeah.
Remember
Yeah.
that Olympic athletes have
Yeah.
coaches. They don't get to the Olympics on their own.
Right.
You should not be doing any of this on your own. Neither should
Right.
we. You know,
No.
there's
No.
nothing. I know a lot of trainers have their own coaches because they're so
Yeah.
busy helping other people. They don't have time to like deal with their
Right.
own fitness. It's just it takes too much time. There's no shame in that.
No.
That's super solid.
And even if you are at the point where, because I feel mostly okay about writing my own programming.
Yeah,
Even
for
if you are
sure.
at that point, like on and off, it depends. I'll cycle in other people's stuff, which benefits me because then I just steal from them, which is awesome.
Girl, I had years where I was solid with it, but like at this point, I'm
No,
not. But like at the same
no,
time, it's like I was good for years.
right.
That's
But
fine.
it's also cyclical,
It
right? You
is.
know, but even if you're at that point where you're like, no, I know what to do. Okay. But somebody needs to be outside of you looking at what you're doing,
Yeah.
you know? You the same way you can't hear everything musically because the as a wind player, the instrument is in your mouth, okay? You
Mm.
are getting bone conduction into your eardrums. So you need somebody who's a little further, like even just chair next to you makes an enormous difference. That's why we sound so different on recordings,
Oh, fair.
right?
Fair.
So if we're that meticulous with we need to hear recordings of ourselves as musicians and we need to have another pair of ears, even if it's just a friend, of course you need somebody looking at you moving because they're going to be looking at different things than you would, right?
Think about it in terms of a master class.
Yeah.
Same difference,
Yep.
same thing, whatever. Either way,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Masterclass
You have a master
instructor.
class with somebody. It doesn't mean
Uh-huh.
that you're any less of a person because you're at a master class with someone. You just
Mhm.
value their opinion. You
Right.
know they're going to
Yeah.
see things and you're going to hear it different because you haven't heard
Yes.
it this way before.
Yes.
Same with you try different strength coaches, try different practitioners.
Mhm.
Somebody's going to resonate with you, and it's important for
Yeah.
you to know who you resonate with.
Yeah.
But strength is important for
Yeah.
all of us. So go
Mhm.
have a session with somebody and see
Right.
if you have a rapport with them. Be like, what do you see when I do this? If they can't
Right.
tell you, then move on.
Yeah. 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 Quick sidebar, and then I'm gonna
Yeah.
leapfrog off what you said, but quick sidebar here. Just you were talking about the masterclass thing, and it just
Yeah. Yeah.
reminded me
Yeah.
like, so when I
The
was
original
going,
masterclass because before it came like super popular and like a buzzword.
but when I was going for my doctorate, when I was looking at schools, I went in and I took lessons with the people I was interested in, and I came back and I won't ever forget. I'm sure he's forgotten at this point, but I was studying with Bob Spring at the time, and I
Yeah.
came back to him and I just went, because he was asking me, how'd it go? Who'd you like? What'd they say? And I'm like, They said everything that you've been saying to me, I now realize, for the last 6 months to a year, but they said it differently, and now I understand what you were saying.
100%.
I understand that he was trying to get the same thing, but because they said it just
Yep.
that much differently, I was like, "Oh," and of course I felt like an idiot, which was hilarious in hindsight, but
No, we've
I'm
all
like
been there. We have
right.
all been there.
Like, but, it's made me less sensitive as an instructor too to I was never very sensitive about somebody working with another person, but I'm very not sensitive. Like, oh, have students come to you like, oh, well, I wanted to take a lesson with this other person. Do it.
Go
Do it.
do
Tell me
it.
how it
Go
went.
do it. Do it.
Do it. Tell me how
Please.
it went. Like, because they're probably going to say the same thing, and if not, what they say is going to be interesting to me. Maybe I know about it. Maybe I am not focused on that area, and that's a really interesting point.
Yeah. No, it's
So that's
good.
my
It's really good.
that's my sidebar. But,
No, that's I'm thinking about all these master classes that I have traveled to I've had lessons with certain people, and I've traveled. I'm thinking Jean Ferrandi, he came to Indiana a few years after I heard him play in Charlotte. And my gosh, the man just pulled sound out of the air. It was like it didn't exist. And he went, here.
yeah. Yeah.
And it was just like, I was just like mesmerized listening to this man play, and everything he did was so effortless. It was beautiful, it was gorgeous, and it was wonderful. Like listening to him gave you a sense of ease in your body, or at least it did for me. I felt
Good.
at ease listening to him, but I was enraptured at the same time, and I went, okay, this is someone I need to understand. And then I think he accepted a position at UCal or something, but he was going to be, somewhere in Indiana, where one of my former college roommates was hanging out. I'm like, I want to go to this master class. She goes, oh, you stay with me. Well, we're going to hang out, and I'm going to go see this thing. And it was just, I had the opportunity to hang out with him at FSU when he was a guest artist. And then listening to him there, it's just, I mean, it doesn't matter how many times you have heard the same thing. When you hear somebody else say it in a different way, especially somebody when you've heard them play and you're like, I want to be that. How do I be effortless in my sound? How do I want to pull sound out of the air? That's just what came to me. And like, and the way he phrased it, he's French. So the way he phrased things could have been the exact same as what Ava said, who is Swiss, but he phrased them differently. So I interpreted it.
Yeah.
And it was magical. And I thought, that you can do this with strength coaches. You can do this with people you decide, with personal trainers you try out, with gyms, with teachers, with Krav Maga, with whatever you decide to try.
Yeah.
But if you don't ever try because you're afraid, because someone said, oh, you'll hurt your fingers.
Right.
Please no. They're living in the past. You can hurt your fingers. I cut the end of my finger off right here, chopping onions. That has nothing to do with the gym, okay? I've done it twice, actually. Learn how to chop onions properly, please. But I tell you, it has nothing to do with the gym.
Yeah. No, I left. I was helping out a friend at one point with a seminar they were putting on. I didn't do the physical labor portion. I'm like, I can do literally everything else, but I'm not picking up this stuff. I have a lesson tomorrow. I don't want to risk it. It's my doctorate. I go home, and the very first thing I do while walking down the hall is smack the crap out of my shoulder on the edge of the hallway wall because I wasn't looking where I was going. Just wham hard. And I was like, I should have just helped them set up.
This would have been better. That would have been better.
That was literally my response was like, because I was so bruised. I'm like, my lesson's going to be kind of crappy tomorrow anyway. Because I was hurt for days.
Ow, you really snapped it.
Over something that stupid. I was like,
that
I should have just helped them carry the stuff. Wouldn't have made any difference at this
Wouldn't have made any
point.
difference. Here's the
You
thing.
know?
You could have said that and then gone to the grocery store and been like, I'm going to take in all these groceries at one time. It's the same thing, guys.
Yeah. I
It
mean,
doesn't
the
matter if
last
it's a
time
barbell or groceries or your
no,
kitty litter, which weighs 25 pounds. Like, come on.
last time I threw out my back, I was reaching over to pick up a piece of paper, so, you know.
See, how did you hurt yourself? I woke up. I mean, these are accurate. And those, by the way, those are another story, but those are generally things that have been accumulating until this
Yeah.
point. So
that's been my
you
experience.
didn't throw out your back because you woke up. It's
No.
an accumulation of bad another
Yeah.
story for another time.
If you slept funny on it, not all the time, but 9 times
Right.
out of 10, it was something that was waiting to happen. It's an
Yeah.
issue that is manifesting that way. Same thing, like, not because I work with not just musicians, right? I work with average people too. And 9 times out of 10, oh, my back really bothers me a lot. Okay. First things I'm going to look at, if it's your lower back, number one thing I'm going to look at is your core. It's probably garbage.
100%.
The next thing I'm going to look at are your lats, and I'm going to assume that you have issues with your hamstrings or your glutes, or both. You tell me that you have forearm and shoulder problems, I'm going to immediately look to see if you are mentally disconnecting the area you're telling me that hurts from the rest of your body. I'm going to check your lats, I'm going to check your teres, I'm going to check your pecs. Chances are one, if not all three of those things are a problem, you know?
Yep.
And I haven't run into a case yet, personally. I have not run into a case yet where that was not true.
9 times out of 10, if that's a low back pain issue, there's core weakness, glute weakness, hamstring tightness because it's weak, and
or
hip
hypermobility.
flexor tightness. Yeah, or hypermobility. Yeah, for sure.
That's
and then
also
there's
a weakness.
Yes. So I mean, it's most of the time where I find people having pain problems is from weakness.
Yes.
Very seldom, and I mean very seldom, have I found somebody who is in pain from something that is tight. If it is, it's usually because there's like an injury there, like epicondylitis or something.
Or
that's a whole
traumatic
other
injury.
situation.
Yeah. Or some sort of trauma, physical trauma, like being in an accident or falling, you know, something like that.
Yeah. But
most...
listening to these people talk on the podcast, it was just amazing to hear all of these people from all different walks of life, from all different types of instrument playing and backgrounds, and they all came to the same, like at the very end, they all went, I found a strength coach, or I found Pilates, or I found strength in some strength training in some form or another. And that's what helped me. And they weren't ashamed about it. Well, some of them were maybe a little bit. They were a little like embarrassed, like, a while to get here. But they all said it, made like 9 out of 10. And that's a generalized statement, you know. But most of the people on the things musicians don't talk about Injury Awareness Week, if you go back and listen, they mentioned they hired a personal trainer. They hired a strength coach. They've got involved in some kind of strength training, and the pain went away. Right. This is not a novelty. It shouldn't be a novelty at this point. My gosh, we've been doing this long enough.
No, we're meant to be we are meant to be strong. You look at the loads that children were carrying back in the day, and we can't do it now as adults.
Yeah.
And not that, you know, we want to necessarily be doing that kind of physical labor, not that didn't take a toll on them, but you just look at what we're built to do. And this is absolutely an example of if you don't use it, you lose it.
For sure.
We're not meant to be weak. We are not designed to thrive that way. And I wish I had realized that sooner. We're not designed to thrive that way. We're not designed to thrive without sunlight. We're not designed to thrive off of, and I'm going to throw this one out here. It's just going to piss some people off. I don't care. We're not designed to thrive off of processed foods.
Truth.
All of this modification and stuff that's coming, like everything processed, everything modified, everything chemical. it's all light years age-wise ahead of where our bodies are development-wise if we're going off of evolutionary theory.
Mm.
It's light years ahead. We can't process it. And there's tons of studies to show that we can't process it. You can survive off of it, but I mean, for God's sake, how many different cultures survive in a starvation situation because we're designed to survive?
To survive. Surviving and thriving are very different.
Not the same thing. Not the same
Nope.
thing. We're survival mechanisms, but that is not our ideal state.
And as a musician, how much of our time do we feel like we spend surviving? Wouldn't you
Most
much
of it.
rather thrive and feel at ease and enjoy
Mhm.
what you're doing instead of just feeling like you've got to get through the next thing and no matter what it
Right.
is?
Right. And when you
We're
look
not
at your
designed for that.
favorite Right. And when you look at your favorite performers, do they seem to carry that sort of frantic nature as well? Or do
Mm.
they seem just really confident and really comfortable and like they're and like you're talking about, I already forget his name, the French flutist who
Jean
just
Ferrandi.
no, you're talking about, and I'm thinking of a couple of clarinetists that I've heard play who are some of my favorites, and it's the
Yeah.
same thing. It's effortless.
Effortless.
And you just look at, I'm like, looking at them in hindsight with the knowledge I have, I suspect one of them has a little bit of neck pain, but it's not from playing.
Yeah.
It's from sitting, standing, whatever. It's not from playing. But it's so effortless and easy, and it's so easy for us to kind of go into that lack mindset. Like, well, they've already made it, so they don't have to be stressed out. You think they're going to be playing on the biggest stages in the world and not feel
Mm.
that pressure?
Mm-mm.
Really,
Mm-mm.
realistically? They found some way to be holistic, and I'm convinced that's what got them there.
Yeah.
Not the other way around. Not the other way around.
Yeah. I know. I'd like to study with him more. And
Mhm.
he's not on the internet very much. So I mean, unless you get to hang out with him in person, you're not going to be able to like.
Right.
He doesn't internet much, you know. I mean, good luck
Yeah.
finding him. I think, like I said, I think he's in California, UCal or
That's
something.
probably why he's more healthy than some of us.
Probably. But you know, like for real. But when I heard him in Charlotte, I want to say it's like 2011. This was forever ago, and he was just standing on stage in front of thousands of us flute players, and he just looked like, as one person said, he was waiting for the bus, just chilling and doing this most amazing, like he could have been waiting for a sandwich. I mean, he was just super chill, like waiting for his baguette and brie. I mean,
You
and
know?
then he would just out of nowhere. And it was just mesmerizing to watch because what you heard and what you saw is so different from what you normally see, which is people who move around a lot and just frantic,
Right.
you know?
They have to show you that they're engaged. No,
He did
you
not.
can tell. You can tell. And the ones I'm thinking of too, like
Yeah.
they honestly, yes, it was so easy to watch them. They were having a ball though. I
Oh,
mean,
you know they are.
you could see the smile in their eyes. Like they didn't need to dance around the stage for you to know that they were having a good time. You could just see it.
Yeah, exactly.
Um,
Exactly.
yeah.
But
And
there
and
was
I
no excess tension going on to make the things happen. Like I said, he pulled sound out of the air. If you think
Mhm.
about what does that make you feel when I say that, as
Right.
opposed to he made this sound come out of
Right.
nothing.
No,
No,
it's
he
something that
pulled it out.
it existed
Just
and he just manifested it.
bingo,
That's all. That's all.
bingo.
That's what we're going for as
Yeah,
musicians.
it was
Um,
wonderful.
yeah.
Isn't
Now
that what you
I
want to
was
hear all the time?
right. I was gonna say that was probably like a few minutes ago. So, well, this is probably a good place to stop, but I actually want to just kind of make a point here real quick. Definitely before we stop.
This is important. This is what we do, and we don't talk about it enough. So
Yes.
go for it.
Yes. And um, you know what? Let's take a commercial break. And
Let's do that.
when we come back, I will tell you how this all relates.
We'll be right back.
Welcome back to the Tuned and Strong podcast. Today we are talking about strength as it applies to the holistic nature of musical performance and how common that is in people who've actually recovered from injuries.
So
Um,
common and necessary.
Yes. So we've been talking about, again, the commonalities with the number of people who found that they needed strength in the end and what we've come across in terms of injuries. And it's almost always an imbalance somewhere or a weakness somewhere. And then we started talking about the concept, like these performers we love who just kind of, it's so easy for them and it just, they just manifest the sound that's already in the air and just bring it into,
Mm.
and it occurred to me that these are on the surface level, they seem very disparate, right? We're talking about strength versus manifesting sound and complete ease of movement. And I think that there's a general mental conflict, at least in a lot of people I've spoken to, between the concept of ease of movement and strength training. So you think strength training, and a lot of people think, oh, you've got to slam weights and slam plates, and you've got to throw your whole body behind it and it should be really intense and roar and and like all of this really aggressive movement that's high risk or whatever. And the truth of the matter is, when at least when I'm training people, um, whether they are musicians who are coming to me or again the average Joe, I'm looking for efficiency of movement first. I don't care how heavy you can go on a movement if you're not moving well. It should feel safe.
100%.
It should feel safe. If you're doing a deadlift with me and it starts getting heavy, and either you feel like the next one is not safe or I see the next one is not safe,
Mm-hmm.
you are not doing the next one. We're
Nope.
done.
Nope. We got to
You
fix it
know?
first.
But that's, yeah. First off, we got to fix it. Second off, effective and efficient, not the same at the same time.
Well,
Effective and
that should be one
efficient.
word.
Efficient. Um,
Efficient? I like it.
but you
Miriam
look at
Webster, you need to adopt that one.
but you look at people who are in strength sports long term and successful long term, not the people who just like show up as young kids and then fizzle out and they're gone. I'm
Yeah.
talking people who are in the business for over a decade
Mhm.
as a competitor. Their movements are extremely efficient.
Efficient. They
They're
don't waste
efficient.
energy.
No. And if you look at their training versus their competition, if you're only watching competition, all you're going to see is that big scary stuff. Because in competition, much in the same way if we're in performance season and it's like, I have to nail this audition, but then I'm not doing anything for 2 months. Can I afford to push past my physical limitations in the audition and then take 2 months to recover? I can. Is it important enough for that? Maybe, maybe not. If all you're looking at strength sports is competition mode, that's all you're going to see is people pushing past where they really necessarily should
Mm-hmm.
so that they can win because they know they're going to recover afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
You don't see necessarily their recovery. If you're not also watching their training,
Recovery is not fun to watch. It's not sexy. It's not
it's
interesting.
no, it's boring. You'll only see people really posting their max outs. You won't see them posting accessory work, all the boring foundation stuff that keeps you from getting hurt.
You also won't see bodybuilding competitors in their off season.
No, they gain like 100 pounds. It's nasty.
Yeah.
Not like
FYI.
not that they're nasty, but what happens to their bodies is just a nasty cycle, like from a health perspective.
There's some that have mastered it, but it's really hard on your body. And it's a
It
full-time deal,
is.
by the way, guys. This is
It
not
is.
you're not going to
No.
get to that point unless you dedicate your life to it. It's a full-time job.
Right. Right. So when you're in the gym working on strength training for music performance, you should have fairly easy mechanics. If not, you're
Mhm.
probably doing a movement you're not ready for. And it cross applies to musical performance in terms of resting strength, which is something else that we don't really talk about too much. If you maybe we talked about this in the podcast, but I know I've talked about it in a couple of like lesson settings and in class settings. So I'll just reiterate it again. Look at a newborn baby or a young baby, right?
Mhm.
Month old or whatever, and they're struggling to lift their head. right? That is max effort just to
Mhm.
lift their head and turn. Max effort. Look at a 6-month-old sitting up unsupported. You think they're thinking about lifting their head anymore? No. Why? Their neck muscles are developed enough that their resting strength makes that feel effortless.
Mhm. Cross
We don't
apply
think
that.
about we don't think about sitting up, most of us, anymore until we get to a point of hurt. We don't
Mhm.
think about standing up until we get to a point of hurt. But that's because we have the resting strength to know that our bodies can do it. You give your body the challenge inside a strength training setting. And then when you get to the instrument, you don't have to think about it. Your body's already strong enough.
Mhm.
And it's easy and effortless.
Mhm. Then again, if you have programmed yourself to work hard at
Hmm.
everything, you will
Hmm.
continue to work too hard at
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
I'm going to insert something that may or may not completely apply, but I have been
Sure.
listening to this podcast called the Successful Mind Podcast with David Nagel. I think I've mentioned this before. This is the guy who got sucked through a dam and lived.
Yeah. Yeah.
What? Like anytime I think that, it's like, that's not possible.
Right.
What? Right. Okay. So now that I have your attention, um, he said something in one of his podcasts the other day, and he does a lot of really short ones, like 10 minutes, 15 minutes. They're not always
Hmm.
really long. And a lot of it's about mindset, obviously, the successful mind, but he does a lot of things that really change your way of thinking about money and about health and about all these things, right?
Hmm.
And there was something he said the other day that really hit home with me, because as a culture in the US, the American
Hmm.
dream is that you work hard, you get the thing. Because
Hmm.
you come here, you can achieve whatever you want, but you got to work hard for it. It doesn't come easy. And what he said was exactly the opposite. He's like, it doesn't have to be hard work. And I went, what? Yes, it does. And like everything in me went, no. Like, that's not what I've learned. Everything has to be like hard work. I have to apply myself. And he's like, well, hear me out. And I'm going to butcher this, but basically is you don't have to work hard at everything your entire life. Once you've mastered something, you can rest in that. And then you can build off that. And it doesn't have to be hard work the rest of your life, whether that's a course that you're building or a tour, or like
Hmm.
once it's kind of like strength. You build strength. It's easy to maintain strength. It's difficult to build
Yes.
strength. It's easy to
Right.
maintain. Same with your
Yes.
playing ability. It's easy to maintain your playing ability. It's harder to build it.
Right.
So same with your career. It's all these things, like it doesn't have to be
Yeah.
hard work all the time. And I just went,
Hmm.
I just want to
Right.
extend him like, that's not fair.
Right.
And he's absolutely right. It
Yeah.
doesn't have to be hard work.
Yeah. Well, and part of that is consistency
It
too.
is. Oh my
That's the
gosh,
other element of
consistency is
that.
the biggest thing.
That's the other element is because I mean, if you're maintaining strength, right? Maintaining is easy, but you have to maintain it.
Yeah.
And it's so easy to be like, well, I got here, so now I'm going to drop off entirely. I, no, no.
Yeah.
And the hard thing is the maintenance, right? Or not the maintenance, the consistency. It's
Consistency is a hard
continuing.
thing.
It is, because it's so easy to be like, but I'm tired of doing this. Like, well, then something's up with your mindset, something's up with
Yep.
something else that's going on.
Yep.
And that can be addressed. Harder to address, I just don't want to, than why don't you want to?
Mm-hmm.
What else is wrong? What's wrong? Not with the thing. What's wrong with you? You know? Like, am I on top of
Gives
all
me
my
a
stuff
lot of
right now?
things.
No. What's wrong with me?
Mm-hmm.
Lots.
Lots. I'm with
Lots.
you. This is a
You
whole
know?
podcast at this point. That's a whole nother
Oh man,
conversation.
it's a mess.
But
But
yeah, the consistency is the hard thing. And
it is.
I've been reading posts from my fellow trainers on Instagram, and the thing they post a whole lot about is like consistency. And I see this with music teachers, like, maybe I should do this. You should go practice. Maybe I should practice. Have you been practicing? Do you practice? I mean, like, same with training.
Right.
Maybe you should do what I
Yeah.
told you. Did you do what I told
Yeah.
you? You didn't do what I
Yeah.
told you. Have you
Right.
been to the,
Right.
quit looking for the next best thing.
Right.
Give whatever you're trying some time. Give it
Mhm.
some consistency. If
Right.
it doesn't sit well with you, that's fine.
Yeah.
But give it some time. And as
Right.
you're going to see from all these other people that are telling you, more
Mhm.
than likely, if strength is what you need, you're going to find out real quick how much better you feel. And
Yeah.
then you can find out what you like. If you talk like, we look at our
Yeah.
episode with Chase and he talked about Krav Maga was his thing, where he
Yeah.
started with Pilates.
Started with Pilates, went to CrossFit, then is doing powerlifting and Krav, right? Was the last thing I heard. I'm like,
Yes.
Jesus, you know?
Dude has cerebral palsy. I mean,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
that's if you haven't gone to listen to that episode,
Oh, that was a cool one.
please.
Um,
So
you
funny.
know?
It was an
Yeah.
amazing episode. But
Yeah.
yeah,
But
like you've got to try the things, but give them some time. And pretty soon,
yeah.
once you get that base of you start to understand yourself when you get in that
Mhm.
strength training realm, whether you're just lifting something and you start to understand, I don't understand here. I don't know what I need here. I'm
Yeah.
lacking here. I want some direction
Yeah.
here. Then you
Yeah.
start to know where to look. Because I've had
Right.
clients that I've trained that just needed a corrective exercise program. But she's like, thank you. This has helped me get rid of pain. I don't like
Mhm.
strength training. I'd much rather do yoga and go hiking. I'm like, atta girl, I don't
Yeah.
care. You got to do
Yeah.
what's good for you. But if you didn't do
Yeah.
this one thing, you're going to get back
Right.
to pain. And she's like, every time I just got to do your program.
Right.
And it doesn't mean it has
I
to
mean,
take over your life, but it's still
no.
strength.
Mhm. Yeah, she's maintaining a strength that she's built. Yoga can
Bingo.
do that too, by the way. I know it sounds
Oh, for
like,
sure.
but man, you gotta know what you're doing in there.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like, I mean, and I get this too. You get me much over 5 people, and I can tell that my quality of coaching is diminishing. That's why I don't like large groups. I don't want to do large groups for that reason. But like, I mean, can I teach you how to feel your hamstrings in a one-on-one? Absolutely. Can I do it in a group of 3 or 4? Yep. Can I do it in a group of 30? No. No, I can't. No, I can't because I have
I don't like group
29 other
training.
people. And that's most intro to yoga classes. So they're going to say, okay, well, hold this plank position. And you might not understand if you can't feel your pecs how to do that. And that's not the
Your
yoga
butt
teacher's
sticking way up in the air
fault,
instead of tucking your pelvis
you
and pulling in your
know.
belly button and all that. You don't
Right, but
know.
maybe you can't feel your core, even if you're in the right looking position. Maybe
Sure.
you're not maybe you can't feel what you're doing, and that doesn't
Oh
help
God.
anybody, you know? If you don't know what you're using, that doesn't help anybody,
Can
including
I
me,
tell
especially.
you the number
Yeah.
of clients I've had try to do a dead bug and they look perfect? I'm like, are you pulling your belly button towards the floor? Is your low back flattened out and you're holding it there on purpose? She went, oh, that's a lot harder. Could you tell a difference? Barely. You
Mhm.
can't do that in a group setting. So it's just
No.
like, she goes, oh, that's a lot harder. I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah,
Yep.
exactly. That's
Yep.
the point, you
Yeah.
know? And that's what's beautiful about one-on-one coaching.
Yeah.
No shame in plugging your own stuff here, but like, just this is why you you study with a teacher. You
Yeah.
trust them to guide you. A trainer does
Mhm.
the same thing. You just got to find the right one. And
Yeah.
if you want to stay with them, great. And if you don't, great. But if you've
Right.
never had a one-on-one session with a personal trainer, it'll
Yeah.
change your life. If you find a good one, if you find a
Yep.
bad one, not so much.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
if you find a bad one who's just like, "Oh, well, just max out." That's a problem. Um,
that's a bad one.
that's a
I've
bad
had some bad
one.
ones. I'm not gonna lie.
You find somebody who just wants you to do whatever it is that they're interested in, whether or not it's what you need. That's a
Bingo.
problem.
Your
Um,
trainer's goals should not be your goals.
yeah,
It should be the
yeah,
opposite way around.
right. And if you're going from 0 days a week and they put you on a 5-day program, that's a problem. If you're a couch potato, you should not be on a 5-day program.
Nope.
3 is probably gonna be really intense, to be
Three's
honest.
max.
Yeah,
Two,
yeah.
probably to
2's
start.
better.
Two's
Mhm.
good.
2's better.
We're the same thing.
You know?
I give my new couch potatoes. I give them 2 days of strength,
Mhm.
and then a daily corrective routine that they may or
Yeah,
may not do. I'm like, this is kind of optional,
yeah,
but the more you get into
yeah.
the habit of doing it, the less
Mhm.
you have to do it. And then we can
Yeah,
do into more strength stuff. And then we go to 3 days after like 4 weeks.
yeah, but
Ish.
that's consistency and building. That's not the
Not
consistency is
immediate.
just the showing up in small doses, not the, "Okay, well, you've gotta do all this stuff right now because you know."
So when people are listening to this is probably in January. And what are we thinking? We have to do
Yeah.
everything right now.
No,
No.
no.
Do you want to change your habits? Remember that whole thing we did on healthy habits? If you want to change your habits, you have to go small.
Yes.
Please don't try to
Something,
do it all at once. My gosh.
right, right. Do something you can actually maintain without killing yourself. You can always add more, but once you burn out, you're not going to back down. You're going to quit.
You're going to quit just
You
like everybody
know?
else. And we've all
Yeah.
been there.
Yes.
But it's like, you got to find the thing that you like. And I know we've said this before, but you got to find the thing that you like.
Yeah.
You got to find a reason to do it for you.
Yep.
And then you have to find, you've got to make it convenient enough to do it. Because if you don't,
Yeah.
it's too easy to not do it.
Yeah.
And go back and listen to our Healthy Habits series. We talked
Yeah.
about the power of habit and how you change that cycle. Because this is the time of year that you're really wanting to do that. And if you want to make this year different than any other year, you got to have more than just whatever you've done in the past that hasn't worked.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You got to have a plan. You got to have a support group. You've got to
Yes.
have a trainer. You've got to have whatever it is, all these things we've talked about. It's got to
Yeah.
be
And
different. It's got to scare
if
you a little bit.
yeah, and
A little bit.
if you struggle with physical activity in terms of, again, like we were talking about, PE scars, stuff like that,
Yeah.
if you've got any of that sort of baggage, for the love of God, have a support system. I don't care if that's a friend that you go with. I don't care if that's a one-on-one with somebody that you trust as a trainer. I don't care. Have a support system because you're not going to make it otherwise.
You can't do this by
I would
yourself.
not have done it without the right people around me. I really wouldn't have. And now I can go on my own. That's fine. I actually kind of prefer it. I'm like, don't talk to me. You know?
Same. I'm not a
But
group coach person, but
right. But most of us weren't group or weren't we didn't start one-on-one music either, right?
no.
Most people are like, oh well,
Started in bands
band or
with everybody
orchestra
else.
or choir, you know. But you were there with your friends and it was fun and you were doing something fun with your friends and now you have that association and now the thing is fun.
Yeah,
Now you want to do it on your own. Same thing.
it is. It is. And we're here for you if you want to reach out to us by all means. If we can't help you, we would be happy to point you to someone who can.
Absolutely.
It's oh my gosh. I mean, and that's the thing, it's I posted this the other day. By the other day, I probably mean yesterday. By the time you're listening to this, it doesn't matter. But I'm trying to grow the Music Strong base because I don't want to just be a personal trainer forever. What I want to do is change the entirety of musicians' wellness and make Music Strong a destination for musicians' wellness, which means I need a whole bunch of people that don't do what I do in a place that, I need to be able to refer people. I need local people. So if you're in that, if you're listening and you are a wellness practitioner of some sort, I don't care if you're an ear, nose, and throat doctor, a hand surgeon, a Pilates instructor, acupuncturist, massage therapist, chiropractor, rolfer, whatever, Alexander Technique person, body mapper, neurokinetic therapist, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Musicians' wellness is not a one size fits all, but especially if you are a strength coach. I definitely want to talk to you because we need more of us to do this. And this is how we grow this whole thing where we take care of each other. And you can travel. And eventually I probably shouldn't be saying this right now, but I want to franchise it out eventually. And, I want to have places where people, you travel, there's a Planet Fitness. I want there to be a Music Strong. This is where musicians go when they're on tour. They've got someone who can go on the road with them, or they've got a place they can go, because you trust that brand. You trust these people. Like, you get me as a musician. You're not just a random trainer that just, you know what I mean? I mean, there's something to be, I've had enough bad personal training experiences and I've had enough people tell me their experiences. I don't want that duplicated.
Yeah.
I'm sure we're human, but so just saying, putting that out there, y'all help me out.
I'm wondering if I suspect we haven't talked about this yet, but that's like totally the direction that I was wanting to head also locally. Not necessarily with, well, no, I guess we could do it under Tune and Tone. I don't care as long as there's a support system, but I'm like, no, there should be a networked group for everything. everything, including performance anxiety and like the psychology.
Yes.
Like, no,
Counseling and
there needs to
psychology, all of
be
that.
there needs to be a support structure, and it needs to be a fully comprehensive one.
100%. I don't know why this isn't happening yet.
Well, because we're still
We're
weirdos.
ahead of our time.
We're still weirdos out here doing this stuff.
You know, I've been thinking about this for years, and this is the first time I'm like, I'm going to figure this out. So I put the word out yesterday. I'm like, I don't know how, I'll be honest, I don't have a clue how I'm going to make it happen. But if I don't start it, I'm going to continue to not have a clue. It's got to have some people, right? So if you are a wellness practitioner, and you are passionate about helping musicians, please talk to us, because we want to talk to you. We want other people to know who you are. Yes. And this doesn't need to be a niche novelty thing. This needs to be standard. There should be a strength trainer or a strength coach, just like there is an athletic trainer for every football team. There should be a strength coach for every orchestra. Not just a physical therapist who, nothing wrong with physical therapists, but not just a physical therapist who helps you when you get injured. How about we have programs to prevent it instead of it being this other thing, right?
That's competitive sports, you know? If you get injured, you go to the, you go to the doctor, you get everything medically done. You go to the physio, the physical therapist, you go to the athletic trainer, and you go back to the strength coach so it cannot happen. It doesn't have to happen again.
Right. Why doesn't that happen in the musical world? It should.
That's the kind of support system they have for that level of competition. And we have very stiff competition as well. Extremely stiff.
Yep. 100%. So that's where we are with that. I think we covered it all. I really hope so.
Yeah. If we didn't, leave us a comment. Let us know what we didn't cover, and we might talk about it next time or the time after.
Yeah. And if you have somebody you think we should interview, please let us know. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button and share it with somebody else.
Yes.
Thank you guys for listening. Yes. Thank you all for listening. Right. We appreciate it.
See you next time.
Hey musicians, did you know that up to 90% of musicians will experience playing-related pain or injury over the course of their careers? If it's not you, it's the person next to you. And they may or may not be talking about it. They may be suffering in silence because they're afraid if they talk about it, they might lose their job or not get hired for that next gig. This can lead to a lack mindset, which can lead to a loss of income and job insecurity, which is the thing we fear most. How many times growing up were you told and have you heard that musicians are broke? If you're going to be a musician, you'll never have any money. Yeah, you're going to have to get a job, right? Not true, friends. Not true. This is Angela McCusin from Music Strong, and I've got a brand new pilot program that I'm calling Job Security for Musicians. I would love for you to join. And what that program entails is that we are going to address the 3 core problems that musicians face when it comes to not having job security. Those 3 things are lack of strength and endurance, strength and stamina, injury, and being clueless when it comes to what your options are or what injuries you might face or where you can turn or what you can do when you have those issues. We are going to overcome all of those things. So by the time this program ends, you're going to be empowered with a knowledge of your own body. You're going to have increased body awareness. You're going to have an increased knowledge of the anatomy of your body as it relates to playing an instrument. You're going to have a keen awareness of all the different types of injuries you could face. More importantly, you're going to learn how to overcome and prevent injury. You're going to be able to write your own corrective exercise routine, and you're going to know how to increase your strength and endurance as a musician so you can play as long as a career as you want instead of that career being dictated by injury and having to cut it short. So if this is something that interests you, head on over to musicstrong.com/job security and we'll get you all the details. Come join us because the beta program is only going on to the end of the year and then we go up to full price. It's a group coaching program and we would love to have you join the community. Come join the Music Strong community and change the world.